Hello friends, my name is Sonia. This is Sonia with an I. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to do a retro romance readathon wrap up. Try to say that a couple times fast. Retro romance readathon wrap up. Retro romance readathon wrap up. Hey, I did it. Yay me. Anyway, I participated in the retro romance readathon that was sponsored by my good friends Storm and Sarah. Sarah is from the Bookish Knitter and Storm is from Storm Reads. They are both lovely, beautiful people who I just think the world of. And when they announced they were going to do the retro romance readathon, I thought, okay, I need to participate. I like to support my friends. So I will say I met my goal. I read 4 books, each of them within a season, or they highlighted a season, and I will say that I had a pretty good time, but I have some thoughts. So I'll share the books with you, give a little summary, and then I will rate them from favorites to least favorites and then give reasons. So, because like I said, I have a lot to say. The first one that I read was The Secret Honeymoon by Peggy Gaddis. This features Kathy, and Kathy's love interest's name is Bill. Kathy is home from the Vietnam War. She's on leave. She is a Vietnam War nurse, and she is being picked up by her Aunt Nora, who is not really her aunt. Her parents had died when she was young, and Nora is a loving neighbor who just took her in. And I love that she describes her aunt as a chubby lady, and when her aunt says something about going on a diet, she's like, I love every inch of you. I was like, okay, size acceptance, 1968, very impressed. This book was written in 1968, so you don't usually see that in a book, and I was thrilled with that. But y'all want to know about the romance. So Kathy is shocked because Bill is not there to pick her up, and Nora informs her that, you know, if you sent the telegram to his house, I'm sure his aunt got it, and his aunt is, you know, she won't untie the apron strings. I always say purse strings, but they're really rich too, so that it kind of goes together. So his aunt is very controlling in his life and only wants him to marry a certain kind of woman, and Kathy doesn't fit that box. So she and Bill decides that they're going to have a secret wedding, and they run to New York and they get married secretly. Now, Kathy doesn't really want to do this, but she loves Bill. And Bill thinks that if Kathy gets married, then she'll leave the army and just be a good wife. And Kathy's like, no, I'm not leaving the army. I am on leave. I am not retiring. So they try to iron this out. They go to New York, and they end up going to New York and then bumping into some of her army friends. And her army friends inform Bill that she was a MIA for 10 days with this colonel or this captain, and he gets, you know, all but hurt about it and runs home, and she goes home and she's devastated because she's a married woman, but he won't talk to her and whatever. So this captain that she was missing with ends up showing up, and he starts professing his love for her. And she's like, you know, I'm in love with Bill, but she doesn't tell anybody they're married because she doesn't want his aunt to find out, and she doesn't want to upset him. But the more she starts thinking about it, the more angry she gets, the more she starts to realize that she's not somebody's dirty little secret. And Bill continues to kind of come at her and profess his love, and eventually she's like, you know what? I think I want a divorce. If you can't be proud of me, I don't want your money. I don't want your aunt's money. I love you, but if you can't be with me, we're done. And as she's doing this, Mark, the other guy, doesn't know that she's married. But he ends up getting in an argument with Bill, and Bill gets telling him, and then he's all heartbroken because she's married. And she starts to think maybe she's starting to have feelings with her Mark because Bill's disappointing her so much. I mean, y'all, it's a mess. In the end, and I'm going to spoiler these books because they're over 50 years old. In the end, they have this big tragedy, and Bill ends up getting hurt and in the hospital, and it scares her. And since she's a nurse, she goes and volunteers in the hospital, and she realizes she loves him after he gets hurt in the end. So, yeah, that was that book. and I read it complete. And the next book I read, I thought was going to be my spring entry, and it ended up being my fall winter. No, it ended up being my winter entry. This was a winter story. So this winter story is called A Handful of Miracles, and it's by Marion Wainsmith. I'm going to put these on because I see so much better with glasses. Why didn't I just start out that way? Some people never learn, right? So here we have Adrienne Blair gets this unaccepted inheritance, a handsome old house in this beautiful country in the Cotswolds in England, and she inherited it from someone who was in love with her mother, but they never dated, but he was in love with her mother, and this man never married and pined after her mother, and her mother is dead, so he ends up leaving all of this beautiful house, this gorgeous grounds, all of this to her. And so she ends up moving there, and she meets handsome, enigmatic Martin Westbury, and Martin sees danger in his eyes, but she has a barely mended heart because her heart was broken before, and then she doesn't know if she's going to head for heartbreak, and how dare she hope for happiness. Y'all, I DNF'd with this one. That's why I had to read the back. I read about 30 pages into this, and all it was, they didn't explore the grounds. They didn't say anything about the house. It was all her sitting in this morning room, either talking to her friend or talking to herself or talking to some little kid that I'm guessing is Martin's kid. I don't know. But about how much she just can't believe this is real, and how she just how can she trust that this is hers because her life has always stunk so badly. And I'm like, okay, these books are only 90 pages long, and you're spending 30 pages over here whining because you've had a bad life and now you have a good life, or you've had this good fortune. I DNF'd it. It was not for me. She instantly was like grating my nerves, and no thank you. So the next one that I read was Loving You Always. It is by Peggy Gaddis as well. So Peggy Gaddis for the win here, because I read a lot of Peggy Gaddis. And here we have, hold on, I didn't read this one. Hold your mule. So the next one that I read was A Moonlight Meeting. This was by Peggy Gaddis as well. And in this one, the main character's name was Megan McTavish. And Megan lives on this farm, and she has a very kind of peaceful life. She does a lot of farm chores, but she's very happy about it. She makes bread, and she makes butter, and she's very happy with the simple, quiet life she has. Her father also lives with her, and her father, she does all the work. Her father's just like this lazy bum. He doesn't do anything except boss her around and be angry at the world. So she's working on the farm, doing her thing, and all of a sudden this gentleman, Tom Fallon, bumps into her as she's taking a walk in the fields, and they end up having a conversation. And it's a very platonic conversation. They just talk kind of about life and whatever, and she ends up finding out that he's the new principal, and he has a wife that lives with her, but his wife has an illness. So, you know, because she said something about, well, I'd like to meet your wife, and he said, well, you know, she has this illness. His sister-in-law lives with them to take care of them, and he works as the principal, and he asks, can he, you know, buy eggs and butter and milk and all those things for her? And she's like, absolutely. So Megan goes home. She's not really thinking, just like, I just met this nice man, nothing beyond that. She ends up going to a quilting bee, and this lady there who likes to stir trouble, and I think her name is Alicia, which would make sense because that was the name of my childhood bully, and she liked to stir it too. Anyway, she goes and tells her, Alice goes to the quilting bee and tells everybody that Megan was walking through the woods with this man, and just like this very, I don't know how to explain this, very like, ooh, you know, and Megan gets mad and says, you know, I didn't do anything wrong. You know, you're just trying to cause trouble. You're always trying to cause trouble. You're jealous, you know, of anybody who's just happy and blah, 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 you know. And she's just, you know, Alice is like, well, I didn't mean to upset you. Jerk. Anyway, she goes home and she's pretty upset about it. And Alice decides to come to dinner, of course, right at dinner time without being invited. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And then she starts batting her eyes at Megan's father. And Megan's father's like, oh, we sure haven't seen a pretty girl around here like that. So Megan's father, who is 50, is kind of trying to canoodle with Alice. Now, Alice is in her 30s, but it's still kind of weird that the girls are like, I don't know. Anyway, so he decides he's going to just start courting Alice. And Megan's like, shaking her head about it. Well, Megan is finding that she, you know, the more Tom comes around, the more she enjoys talking to him. But she's, you know, she's perfectly fine with that because her childhood sweetheart, Larry, comes on the scene and he finds a good job and he decides to propose to her. And they've been on 2 dates, but she knows that they're going to get married and he proposes. But she doesn't answer right away because she's not real sure, because she's starting to feel like that she might be feeling something for Tom, even though Tom is a married man. So, you know, Larry's got this big break. He proposes. She kind of says yes. And so, you know, her father's like, oh, we can sell the farm. And Megan's like, I'm not selling the farm. And he's like, you have to sell the farm. You're getting married. So basically what happens is her father wants her to sell the farm because he doesn't like doing farm work and he wants to get all this money. And then now he's decided he's going to marry Alice. Well, then when Megan refuses, he's like, well, I'll just marry Alice and we'll just move in here. And Megan's like, Alice is not moving here. So she's dealing with all of that. And Megan's struggling internally because she feels like she doesn't feel like she's really attractive or has anything worthwhile, and she feels like that she should be happy and head over heels for Larry, but she finds herself wanting to be with Tom. So one night she's walking out in the wood or walking out in the fields by herself, and she ends up bumping into Tom, and they talk for 3 or 4 hours, and she ends up coming home and she sees her father sneaking in home, and then she finds out that Alice has been murdered. And because she was out at that time when Alice was murdered, and so was Tom, she's going to have to tell people that she was alone with Tom, but she's afraid he'll lose his principal job. And you know, Tom confesses that his wife is not physically sick, she's mentally sick, that she has a lot of problems, she has the mind of a child, she's kind of bedridden, she doesn't really do anything. Well, come to find out he doesn't really know what his wife is capable of. And they end up investigating, and of course the wife is the one who did the murdering. And it's this horrible tragedy, and Megan is just taken aback by it. But Megan realizes that what she felt for Tom was not really love, it was sympathy, and that she really loves Larry instead. And Tom admits that he's fallen in love with Megan, and he would stay in that town if Megan wanted him, and Megan decides that she wants Larry. So that was the end of the story. I finished it. I didn't, you know, I have some thoughts, but I'm going to go on to the next one. So my next one here was The Way of the Heart, and this was my fall entry that ended up being the spring. So I did get spring, summer, winter, fall, just not in the order that I was planning. So this one, it was the scandal of the season when world famous actress Andrea Lawrence stalked out of the Broadway hit to go home again. Home to her sister Barbara, who would share everything with Andrea, from her warm hospitality to handsome Hugh Robards. So the main character's name is Barbara, and that's the sister. And the book opens up with Barbara having a conversation with Hugh, her fiance. And Hugh starts remembering how he saw her sister, they call her Andy. he saw her sister Andy, and she was just, her hair was beautiful and flaxen, and she was twirling on a boat, and he was just mesmerized by her 15-year-old beauty. You know how I feel about that, right? While he was working on the boat, he was mesmerized by her 15-year-old beauty. He's telling his fiance what a big crush he had on his fiance's sister. And then when she decided to move off to New York to be on Broadway, he decided that that he would just have to be with her sister because he didn't want to move off to New York. That wasn't the path he wanted. He wanted to stay in his hometown, so he would marry the sister instead. And that's why he proposed to Barbara. Excuse me? Second fiddle much? Yeah. So the story basically goes, Andrea comes back. Andrea wants Hugh back. Andrea and the sister fight. They fight over Hugh. Hugh can't make up his mind. But in the end, Hugh realizes that Barbara's better than Andrea, and he decides to stay with her. And everyone understands and forgives the sister and forgives Andrea, the sister, because she's always been flighty and she's always been fickle in the end. And they're still engaged and they're getting married. Yeah. You probably can tell how I feel about this one. So, let's rate these books. The worst book. Do you want to start with worst or best? Yes, start with worst. So the worst book, of course, to me was Handful of Miracles. I didn't even finish it. I DNF'd it. So, I don't rank books that I don't finish because I don't think that's fair. I didn't actually read it. So, I just don't, no stars. No stars. The Way of the Heart would be a 1 star for me. I did finish it. I did read the whole thing. And first of all, him constantly talking about how beautiful she was when she was 15 and how he couldn't stop thinking about her golden-haired, glittering Andrea. She's a beautiful star, and how can he, how can a man help but not dream about a woman? No thanks. I gave that a 1. The next one, like the second to the best or the third to the worst, however you want to put it, was probably, I would say, A Moonlight Meeting. I really loved Megan. I really loved her as a character. I felt empathy for her. I understood kind of where she came from, because even though her father was a huge jackass, that's the only word I can think of for him. He was a donkey. Even though he was this huge donkey, she still was like, she forgave him anyway. And when he really, in the end, he really tried, after Alice got, then he really tried. Like, he went and got a job, and he, asked for her forgiveness and talked about her mother and how much she loved her. And what is up with the mothers in these books? Because there's not a mother in any of these books. There's not a mother. They're all dead. And I don't think any of them have fathers either. I think they're all gone. It's like, where are your parents? No wonder you don't know how to do relationships. Anyway, so Megan seemed to be like the most level-headed, and even though I wish that she would have found a little strength in her, she did. She realized that she misplaced love, or she misinterpreted sympathy for love, which I don't know. I just thought that was clever. I enjoyed it. Honestly, I really enjoyed the reading. I liked the little addition to the murder mystery aspect. I kind of like that too. This is a very close to being number 1, but I will say that I think Secret Honeymoon was my favorite. And I don't know though, they're awful close, because there's some things I didn't like about this one too. But I love the fact in Secret Honeymoon that she was a Vietnam veteran. Like, she was coming back from war instead of the man coming back from war. I thought that was cool. I loved that she talked about the struggles that she had when she was in Vietnam, and how the soldiers struggled there too, and how it was thankless. And I don't know, there was just a little bit of history in that for me that I enjoyed. She got sick of being, you know, the dirty little secret and was like, I'm done. She stood up for herself. She was like, you know, like strong female. She was like, you know, I don't have to put up with this. If this is what love is about, I don't need it. I'm perfectly happy being on my own. I will go back overseas and serve my country and, you know, be done. So I will have to say that both of these female characters were strong characters who knew what they wanted, who eventually knew what they wanted. They eventually figured out that they're worth something and that they could survive without a man, and they could be perfectly happy just loving themselves and living in their own lives, which that sort of surprised me, especially for the time period. This one was written in 1968, and I believe A Moonlit Meeting was written originally in 1944, and it was re-released in 1965. Nope, yeah, it was re-released in 1965. So this one was actually 1944. I mean, how? That's pretty incredible, I think. So yeah, I would give both of these 3 stars if I was rating 3 stars. This one here would be a 1 star, and I wouldn't rate this one because, like I said, I didn't finish it. This was fun. I really did enjoy this. They were 90 pages. I read them in one sitting. It was fun kind of seeing what it had to offer. The Moonlight Meeting, the 1944 Moonlight Meeting, I wanted more. Like, I would have read more of this. If they would have done more with the murder mystery, if it would have been a little bit longer, I really wanted more of that. Now, I did have a 3rd book. I didn't get to it. And as much fun, and I think both of these are also by Peggy Gaddis, and maybe Peggy Gaddis is just a good romance writer. As much as I did enjoy these, though, I was kind of, I've done my 4 seasons, and I'm kind of ready to read something else. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Did you participate in the Romance Readathon, Retro Romance Readathon? If you did, let me know about it in the comments. My favorite place to chat in the world is the comments with you, my friends. Let me know how you did. Do you like romance? Do you normally read romance when you're not doing a readathon? Have you read any retro romances? Let me know all about it. If you made it this far, you can leave me a heart in the comments just to let me know you made it this far and that you're a real one. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and please know that you make the world a better place just by being in it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Happy reading. Goodbye now.